Just because the President of the United States does not want corporations to care about climate change doesn't mean you shouldn't care about climate change. Frankly, that's a political view of a dinosaur. Just because the President of the United States does not want corporations to care about climate change doesn't mean you shouldn't care about climate change. Frankly, that's a political view of a dinosaur. It is just so out of touch with everything that we know, how we are living, what we are breathing, what we are seeing. We can't be told, don't pay attention to what has happened for political reasons. We have to say, no, we see it, and we're going to respond to it. So the systemic changes in both mitigation and adaptation must continue, despite some of the pushback coming from my country in particular. But I want to go further than that. I think businesses, individuals, communities, we all have a role to play, and we all have agency. We can do things. We can make a difference. And I remember being in India when I was Secretary of State for official business, of course, with the government. But also I met with businesses and groups of women and activists who were trying to provide cleaner cooking. Now think about that. Clean cooking. Why? Because so much of what is burned for cooking in the world still today is polluting. And the fourth leading cause of death in the world is respiratory illnesses. And there's a huge percentage of those that come to women and children because they are cooking food over polluting fires. And so we launched a big effort to change the way, to create a market for clean cooking utensils. Now that's a small thing, but it could have a big impact. So there is something for all of us to think about doing. And of course, I want to see governments do a much better job of fulfilling their responsibility and not turning the clock back and not pretending that climate change is not real. Hiking, being in beautiful places, getting, the extraordinary energy one gets from being in nature. But now we know, because people study everything, now we know that spending time in nature, literally if it's just in a city park, if it's watching a river or the ocean, if it's hiking in the hills, whatever it might be, actually does help reset your brain. So my feelings about climate change are really rooted in a great love of nature that, my mother really instilled in me. I mean, just lying on the ground looking at a tree, what a miracle it is. And to know that as a human being, we did not do that. We did not create that. We did not create the oceans and the rivers and the mountains and the forests. We inherited it. And with that inheritance, as with any inheritance, should come a sense of responsibility. And so I care deeply about climate because I see the impacts that it's having, just the extraordinary damage it is doing, and what is now expected to be increasing temperatures that will flood islands, cause wildfires, increase the severity of storms, subject our bodies to extreme heat, because we have not cared for our planet. And sometimes when I say things like this, I see, political eyes or business eyes kind of glaze over, like, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, if we don't take care of our world today, it will cost us more money. It will cost us more death and destruction. It will cost us more political conflict. That is not good for business, and it's not good for politics. So I come from a very personal perspective as to why I believe we have to keep trying, despite the naysayers, despite the cynics. We have to keep trying with all of our hearts and minds to really respect and cherish this planet that has given us everything. And we have done some really good things with it, but we have caused some great damage. So now we have to try our hardest to make amends.
I couldn't agree with you more. I did want to ask you the final question, and take your time on this. What is your advice for young Global South climate leaders?
Do not give in to the naysayers and the cynics. Do not doubt that you are engaged in historic, important work. Of course, you have to understand the politics. You have to understand the markets and the businesses. That is part of being an effective advocate. You have to know how hard you can push, what compromises you can take to try to go farther and get more done because you have built on it and you're ready to go from there. So I think the voices of young people in the Global South have to get much louder and much more insistent. And you also have to come up with creative solutions. And then you have to keep knocking on doors till other people listen to you. You know, I remember when I went to the COP conference in Dubai, I met with a group of young activists from the Global South. They had extraordinary ideas, but they couldn't get anybody to listen to them. They didn't bring their bankers with them. They didn't have bankers. They didn't know people on boards of directors of companies, but they were rooted in solving the problems they saw in their communities. So we have to be more open and understanding that ideas are going to come from everywhere, and they're going to be good ideas. Most of the global climate financing doesn't go to people like that. And very, very little of it goes to women who are activists and environmental innovators. So let's open our minds, and if you're a young climate activist, keep knocking on those doors, keep making your arguments, keep showing up, come to conferences like this, and keep working together.